Hello, everyone. Welcome to day one of the Asia for Animals Coalition second series of AfA Connect. It's great to see you all here today. On behalf of AfA and our members, thank you all for joining us. My name is Alsala, and I am the Events Coordinator under the AfA Coalition. As we begin, let's take a moment to cover some important housekeeping matters. This will just require a few minutes of your time. First and foremost, this event is being live streamed on YouTube and will remain there for people to have the opportunity to watch later. Please make sure to switch off your camera and microphone, as some participants may be joining us from areas with limited internet connectivity, so keeping cameras off can improve their streaming experience. For those joining via Zoom, if you want to enable the auto captions, which is an auto translation feature, click More at the bottom of your Zoom screen, then click on Captions and set your language to the language that you wish to be translated. I'm just going to pause here a bit so you have the time to do so. Okay. And please also set your screen name to the name that you registered with so we can check who has been able to join us today. You can do so by going at the participant box, go to the three dots and change your name, rename yourself there. And of course, if you have any questions, please place them in the chat box in either Zoom or YouTube if you are watching there. And these will be collated by AfA staff members, and we will address as many as we can during the sessions. Okay, a little bit of introduction of who we are. The Asia for Animals Coalition is not only the largest animal protection network in Asia, but by membership, we are also the largest animal protection network in the world. AfA is composed of 26 core member organizations representing a diverse array of animal protection and advocacy organizations. There are more than 300 organizations in our network. AfA has undergone a dramatic growth in the past few years, and we are now a team of 16 staff coordinators spread across 6 countries, all dedicated to helping organizations help animals. At its core, AfA is about uniting voices for the animals of Asia. We help organizations collaborate in various ways, for example, in investigations, campaigns, and reports. We also provide a platform for the sharing of resources, knowledge, and experience, and we act as a central point for networking and connecting. Thus, the movement to help animals is stronger when we are united and when we collaborate. By working together, we can be more efficient and have a bigger, better impact. In order to concentrate on specific areas of interest, AfA organized 7 working groups. These groups allow our members to collaborate on various aspects of animal advocacy, such as social media animal cruelty, policy work, capacity in animal protection, and issues facing farm animals, macaques, and sanctuaries and rescue centers. Okay, back about Connect 2. The main theme this time is insurmountable challenges aiming for solutions. The event, AfA Connect 2, is spread across 2 days, and guest speakers will share their experiences and lessons learned about why it is so important to understand, support, and collaborate with those working on the ground for animals. It's a clear and successful strategy to create a better future for all animals. So today will consist of 2 sets of concurrent sessions. First, in the main room, which is where we are at now, The Social Media Animal Cruelty Coalition will start with online animal cruelty content and wildlife trade. At the same time, in the breakout room, under the Dog and Cat Coalition, we'll have the Engaging the Government for Effective TNVR programs in Asia. And if you're wondering on how to move between rooms, you'll find in your Zoom panel at the bottom there's an icon called Breakout Rooms. You may have to click on the three dots for more at the right to find this. And then click Join on Breakout Room 1. So if you're there and you would like to head back to the main room, which is here, you can click on Leave Room at the bottom right on your screen. So without further ado, I would like to invite you to make your way to the session that you would like to attend. So those who would like to attend the Social Media Animal Cruelty Coalition session, just stay here. And those who would like to attend the Dog and Cat Coalition, please head to the breakout room. Have a good one, everyone. I'm just going to give some time for you to move to the next room for those who would like to move there. If you need any help to move to the breakout room, please let us know in the Zoom chat. We'll definitely help you out. We're going to give some time. All right, I shall pass the floor over to the next session. Nicola, the virtual floor is yours.
Hello, thank you, Ursula. Great, I'm actually going to be recording the session, so I'm just going to set that going right now. Great, I think that's going. So thank you everyone for joining today's session, whether you're in the Zoom room with us or joining us on YouTube. This session today is brought to you by the Social Media Animal Cruelty Coalition, one of AFA's many working groups. And we today will be starting to explore the links between online animal cruelty content and wildlife trafficking. And the thoughts behind this is that through our work at SMACC, we find a lot of animal cruelty content that is directly or indirectly linked to the pet trade, and there is a huge problem around wildlife trafficking on social media. So we want to start to bring those two issues together and see how we can strengthen our efforts for animals. So we have a great range of speakers with us today. I hope you really enjoy it. And I'm going to actually pass over, first of all, to our lead coordinator, Winaya, who's going to do an introduction to the session and what we will be covering today.
Thanks, Nicola. Let me just share my screen for now. Okay, sorry for the wait. Can anyone see my screen?
Yes, Winaya, but we're actually looking at your
Yes,
notes.
sorry. Let me. Okay. Oh, sorry for that. Oh, I think I shared this the wrong screen. Sorry for that.
It's okay.
Okay, is this the right one now?
Perfect. Yeah,
Yes, great. Thank you.
Great.
Sorry for the delay. My name is Vinaya. I will be representing SMACC to give an introduction why we think the correlation of these two topics are significant to be highlighted. So first of all, we would like to say thank you for all of the support that our members have given to us. As of today, we have grown into a coalition with 24 members in total. And we would like to ask a favor as well to complete this very quick form as a part of our long-term project where we aim to discover public's understanding on online animal cruelty. You can access the form from the QR code or the link provided in the slide. It will only take approximately 2 minutes to complete. And please be warned that some of the images and topics addressed in this presentation and also the session can be distressing. So let's begin with the definition of animal cruelty itself. And as you can see, animal cruelty refers to the ill behavior of humans towards animals. And when it is put under an online context, any images, videos, or articles that contains this ill treatment, which is spread without the intention of awareness, is considered to be an animal cruelty content. And cruelty content can sometimes be very visible, but it can sometimes be very ambiguous. Here are SMACC's category of online animal cruelty that often correlates to one another and often seen in social media platforms and other digital platforms that exist. And relevant to today, you can see that some of this content can intentionally increase people's interest in having these animals, especially wild ones, as pets. And now let's move on to the next topic on the issue. So according to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, wildlife trafficking involves the illegal trade, smuggling, poaching, capture or collection of endangered species, protected wildlife, which includes animal or plants that are subject to harvest quotas and regulated by permits, derivative or products thereof. And recently, the UNODC published the latest report on wildlife crime. And from the press release, there are a few notable takeaways that is relevant to this discussion. And first, wildlife trafficking overall has not been substantially reduced over 2 decades. And in 7 years, illegal trade had affected more than 100 countries and around 4,000 plants and animal species, indicating how vast the damage of this trade can inflict. The magnitude of wildlife trafficking is amplified and strengthened by social media. And as a platform with an almost unlimited reach, it makes it harder to track and regulate the flow of this trade. As the Coalition to End Wildlife Trafficking Online stated, advances in technology and connectivity across the world, combined with rising buying power and demand for illegal wildlife products, have increased the ease of exchange from poacher to consumer. As a result, an unregulated online market allows criminals to sell illegally obtained wildlife products across the globe. So how do these two intertwine? SMACC's work involves with data collection that are logged into our database by our very dedicated volunteers. And as you can see here, wild animals feature in a great deal of content, often depicting the animals as cute and suitable as pets. Comments on such content show the impact of this content, with research showing viewers respond positively, stating they wish to own the species also and where they can source one from, indicating a demand for wild animals as pets. The challenges to eradicate this type of cruelty content vary in so many ways, and not all stakeholders have the animal's best interest at heart. Since 2023, we had received almost 2,000 possible links that can be correlated to wildlife trafficking from both the public and our volunteers. And our volunteers are periodically trained with instructions on how to identify and collect this relevant data. So 109 of these records that marked as wild animal sale content were carefully curated by our volunteers according to the information they gathered. And based on our spot checking, we found out that all of these links came from the feed of social media and not the marketplace of the platform. We also identified that people who buy and sell wild animals often use the word adoption when looking to buy or sell wild animals, for instance, juvenile primates. There are also content that blatantly do a hard sell on their accounts, and there are also content that do show offline wildlife market. These are only a few indicators that point out the existence of wildlife sale on social media, despite the transaction not practically seen on the platform. And again, this type of content greatly induces interest of people to have wild animals as pets. Despite of the easy access of such content, it's rather difficult to determine where these videos are coming from due to the lack of information. SMACC might be leading in changing the condition of online animal content, but we have very limited knowledge in wildlife trafficking. And with our own findings of how wild animal sale is happening on social media, we figure that these two topics should be addressed more thoroughly. And that is why we have invited experts. They may be able to enlighten us on this knowledge. So join with us to discuss more about social media engagement and collaborative effort is Chen Yema, the Program Manager of International Fund for Animal Welfare, who is overseeing IFA's 3 programs in China, including Wildlife Crime Prevention, Asian Elephant Protection, and Beijing Raptor Rescue Center. Next is a speaker who has been diligently working on the policy around wildlife trafficking and will also present a case study of wildlife torture videos and the involvement of law enforcement in Indonesia, Dwi Nugroho Adiasto, founder of Science for Endangered and Trafficked Species. We have Thomas Villanova from the Wildlife Protection Unit, Media and Advocacy Division of the International Animal Rescue Indonesia. He creates educational content about wildlife and protected animals in Indonesia, and his team supports Indonesia's law enforcement agencies in combating wildlife crime. Last but not least, our speaker, Anbarasi Bupa, is the co-CEO of ACRES. She oversees the education, fundraising, animal crime investigation, and the wildlife management departments at ACRES. She will be providing us with a real-life case and data of online wildlife trafficking and their experience with the communication platform called Telegram. And now I will hand it over to Chen Yema to begin her presentation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chen Yema, or you can just call me YK, but 2 letters. I'm the program manager of the AfA China office. It's such a great pleasure and honor to be here today and to share our work. And I want to thank you, AfA colleagues, sincerely for organizing this great event. And based on the recommendation, I will turn off my camera for better connection. And just give me a sec for sharing my screen. There. Please let me know once you can see it.
Yes, it works well.
Okay. Sounds good. Just give me a sec. I don't want it full screen. My apologies, just give me a second. How can I not make this thing the whole screen?
Hi, YK. Is there any way we can help you?
Hi. Yes, yes. Maybe it would be better if you could help me with the sharing.
Gotcha. Give me a sec.
There we go. I will start with the very brief introduction of IFA. IFA is established in 1969, and we currently have 16 country offices, and we have projects over 40 countries. And our vision is animals and people thrive together. You know, when AfA colleagues reached out, they emphasized that the priority here is to show the cooperation with the social media platform is happening and actually impacting online wildlife trafficking. I really appreciate this angle, and IFA does have a lot to share on this. Next, please. Yes, Actually, in October 2022, in collaboration with WCS, IFA organized a workshop in Bangkok, focusing on enhancing the capacity of CSOs from Great Mekong region and Malaysia to tackle wildlife cybercrime. Over 40 delegates representing 16 CSOs joined the workshop. Prior to the workshop, we did a survey to understand the current status of the work, and the most mentioned factor hindering combating wildlife cybercrime is actually the responsiveness of internet companies. So although our work in China is quite different, in terms of the context and the overall internet landscape we're facing. However, today I want to share with you some of the ways we engage with internet companies and some of the lessons learned, and I hope that could provide some of the useful reference for you. Next, please. Combating wildlife crime is one of the strategic priorities for IFA's global work. We firmly believe that there's a need to combating the crime from the entire trade chain. In the source country, we support anti-poaching, and in the transit countries like the Middle East, we've been supporting enforcement capacity building and international enforcement cooperation. Next, please. And in China, which is one of the major destination countries, we adopt a 4-pillar strategy. We conduct wildlife crime research, which serves as the foundation for all of our other work. It helps us to support intelligence-led enforcement actions and support our policy advocacy work. And we've been providing need-based capacity building support to domestic enforcers, as well as supporting some of the international law enforcement cooperation, such as the China-Vietnam annual enforcement mechanism and Operation Mekong Dragon, led by China at the Vietnam Customs. And it will be also been working very closely with the internet companies and logistics companies, because we do see these private sectors play such an important role in this topic. And last but not least, reducing demand and changing social norm. Next, please. Here, I want to just give you a very brief overview of the way we conduct wildlife crime research. We have 5 different ways, and I mean, none of them is very unique just to IFA. But I just want to highlight that because we are increasingly see live streaming or short videos on social media, and some of our traditional ways, such as keyword searching, no longer help us to keep track of this kind of information. So we're increasingly working with the CSOs and help to enhance the capacity of them so that they can better engage a much broader volunteer network to focus on this topic. And something quite special about our current work is how we've been using AI to conduct the wildlife crime monitoring, which I will introduce a little bit more detail. Next, please. And before we go to our ways of working with internet companies, just a very brief introduction of the evolution of wildlife cybercrime in China. I think this evolution is either already happening elsewhere or will be the future, because I think China and many Asian markets share a lot of similarities to Chinese internet markets. Originally, we see people using all those of code words, such as white plastic representing ivory, to avoid detection. And then increasingly, they realized that the internet NGOs like us and the other volunteers, they already grasp what are the code words. So then they switch to only images that cannot be detected by traditional keyword searching. But now the increasing challenge is that the trade has moved to live streaming and short videos. If you are not there to watch the live streaming, and if the information has been passed, there's no way you can record it back or trace it back. So that really poses a lot of a challenge to our current work. So for IFA, as the traders or the criminals, they evolve in the way they do their business. We're also trying to keep up with their pace. Next, please. And I want to acknowledge that one of the primary reasons that we could be effective in combating wildlife cybercrime is that it is one of the priorities to the Chinese government and the regulatory bodies of the topic. First of all, there is a specific clause within the wildlife protection law of China saying that it is prohibited for internet companies to provide venue to trade illegal wildlife products. And also, we've been supporting the National Forestry and Grassland Administration to establish an intersector coordination working group dedicated to tackle wildlife cybercrime. As you can see in this frame, all of the relevant enforcement and regulatory bodies and the major internet companies and also NGOs and volunteers included in this working group. And this mechanism is very effective in urging internet companies to take timely action. So from here, I want to highlight the point that I think the policy advocacy, enforcement capacity building, and building this working relationship with the enforcement agencies, they are so important to any of the work related to combating wildlife crime. Because if the enforcers, they don't enforce the law, or the law doesn't exist at all, there's not much can be done by NGOs or CSOs. That's based on our experience. Next, please. And now I want to jump into the 4 methods or the 4 modes of our collaboration with internet companies. The first kind we call the standard or the typical kind. In a nutshell, we identify the problem and we ask the platforms to remove or block illegal wildlife trade information based on our findings, and that's the mode. Our collaboration with Baidu Post Bar is a good example. Baidu Post Bar is a platform owned by Baidu, and it functions very similar to Reddit. So based on our monitoring results, we approached Baidu to close the bars that actually contain illegal wildlife trade information. For example, the image shows here is the elephant aviary bar has been shut down. And next, please. Bi-weekly, we also analyze our monitoring results. And for those information of intelligence value, we will do further analysis and package them into intelligence leads and share with the enforcement agencies directly. But for the rest of the information, we will just share directly with the Baidu post bars for them to delete. The 2 images here are screenshots of IFO's database. All of our research data is categorized here, and we pull from this database very easily and share with the relevant platforms for them to take actions. And then we will trace back if they take action or not. Next, please. During our work, we also realized that because the traders are increasingly use just images instead of code words to avoid detection, so we collaborated. We approached Baidu to develop this AI-powered tool called AI Guardian of Endangered Species, and the 1.0 version of this tool can identify products of elephants, pangolin, and tiger with 75% of accuracy. Since we put this tool into use in 2020, the tool has helped us to screen over 360,000 of images and help us to trace down over 5,000 of infringing listings. Next, please. Right now, we are collaborating with the Baidu to develop the next generation of the tool. And we aim to expand species coverage to 29 species, and then enhance the accuracy to above 85%. Next, please. The second mode we just simply called it the warning mode. It applies to social media platforms which contains content that are not necessarily illegal, but could trigger illegal activities. For instance, if a user showcase African gray parrots on Douyin, which is Chinese TikTok, but not selling it, the content may not be illegal. However, we worked with Douyin to add a warning below such videos to warn people of the legal risks for purchasing and keeping African gray without the relevant permits. And for the actual legal illegally banned products such as elephant ivory, when users search word, there will be this clear warning asking people that buying ivory is illegal, and advocating people to say no to illegal wildlife products. Next, please. The third mode, we call it certification mode, because for some of the wildlife products, only certified sellers can sell it. So a good example would be our collaboration with this platform called Weipeitang, which is one of the largest online auction platform, mainly sell antiques. So in our research, we found that many sellers, they don't display any certification when they sell certain products, and we have no way to verify if they actually have those certifications. So we approached Weipeitang with our findings and warned them of the legal risks. So after providing a series of trainings to Weipeitang staff, they actually updated their site policy and make display of legal permits compulsory. Next, please. The last mode, we call it the user reporting mode. WeChat is the most used instant messaging application in China, and is of course used by many criminals for their illegal activities. Back in 2015, AfA and Tencent jointly established this program called Tencent for the Planet, and it is also Tencent's first biodiversity conservation focused initiative. So users can report illegal wildlife trade information to this platform, and AfA as well as other NGOs will provide timely support to Tencent staff when they have trouble verifying the illegality of the reported information. Next, please. And in addition, AfA also worked with the other NGOs and Tencent to establish this group standard called Internet Companies it's called a group standard for Internet companies to tackle illegal wildlife trade online. It is not a legally binding document, but it has a huge impact in sharing best practices and advocating for other platforms to enhance their regulation. And of course, besides these ways of working with internet companies, we also work with them to launch dozens of campaigns over the past 10 years, reaching tens of millions of their users. Next, please. We also engage them to participate in the global coalitions and international events for them to share their experience and with other internet companies and to foster more cross-sector collaboration. So on the left, you can see this group photo taken at the 5th anniversary of the coalition to end wildlife trafficking online, which was jointly established by AfA, WWF, and Traffic in 2018. It currently has 49 members, and over half of them are Chinese companies. Next, please. Last but not least, I hope to point out a very significant emerging challenge we are facing right now. Currently, individuals keeping CITES Appendix 1 and 2 species without the special permits is prohibited by Chinese law. However, this policy may change in the near future. In 2023, the National Forestry and Grassland Administration issued the first batch list of species that could be opened. And in this list, we see very concerning species such as radiated tortoise and African gray parrots. So if this policy is passed, it may trigger international illegal trade and also cause huge regulation burden to both enforcers and the regulatory bodies from the government and also the internet companies themselves. So AfA is very closely monitoring this development, and I encourage you to also pay close attention to this increasing alarming exotic pet trade. That's all of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. I do have a last page with my email on it. And this photo is from the workshop I mentioned in the very beginning. I really hope that today's sharing provides some useful information to you. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any question. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. That was really, really great. And already can see some things that we can transfer over to SMACC. So definitely be following up with that. Okay, so next we have Dwi joining us. I'll
Hi,
pass the floor over to you.
hi, Nicola.
You're sharing your own screen, right?
Yep, I'm
Great,
trying.
thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. So yeah, thank you. So thank you for the time given to me to present this topic. So since I'm in remote area and I'm worried that my signal is not really good, so I'm trying to stop the camera and then start to give a presentation here. Have you seen my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so this topic actually is hard for me to prepare because when I made this presentation, I had to research a case and come across photos of violence committed by humans, yeah, who are said to be the most civilized creatures. So when you see the slide, so I can say that Indonesia has a long history of law enforcement efforts against wildlife crimes. So every year over the past 6 years, at least 200 to 300 law enforcement operations, I mean arrest and confiscation of animals, are conducted by government annually against illegal poachers, collectors, intermediaries, middlemen, exporters, financial backers, and also wildlife consumers. And from this information, we can also see that thousands of cases have been handled. More than 3,000 perpetrators have been arrested, and most of them actually have been prosecuted. And hundreds of thousands of animals from almost 700 species have been confiscated over the past 20 years. Yeah, this news above actually came from several cases of animal abuse that went viral and received a quick response from law enforcement officials. However, there are still many cases that are not viral and are not monitored by the public and not also the government, especially because this animal abuse is carried out by undercover for certain purposes. Yeah, here I quote several facts from media and also literature about violence against animals in Indonesia and the existing policy that have been linked to handling violence against animals. So we can see here Indonesia is one of the most prolific producers in the world of content showing violence toward animals, and also data from the AfA for Animals Coalition, so that Indonesia is ahead compared to US and Australia in the production of violent videos. And also between July 2020 and August 2021, Indonesia produced a large number of animal torture videos, yeah, from 1,000, around 1,626 of the 5,480 videos documented from by AfA for Animal Coalition. This is quite huge number of videos produced by Indonesian perpetrators. And yeah, so we can see that the perpetrators, they use monkeys, dogs, cats, chickens, rabbits, snakes, pangolins, and even bears, yeah, have been recorded being tortured for produce videos for entertainment. For the perpetrators, actually, the motive behind animal cruelty videos is for the entertainment, yeah, for entertainment. While for the creators of the videos, the motive is business, making money by selling these videos. And however, the criminal code only threatens perpetrators with jail for 3 to 9 months. It's quite a light sentence. So because the law that clearly regulates criminal sanction against perpetrator of violence against animals quite low, yeah, as I mentioned before. This is the criminal code article 302 provides a maximum prison sentence of 3 to 9 months in the jail. Yeah. And also law enforcement personnel if only act after pressure from members of the public or after cases have gone viral on social media, as I mentioned before. And I'm used to reading news about dogs being thrown live into rivers, yeah, or cats being shot by humans because they are considered a nuisance. However, for this case that I will present, I will use as an example. The violence actually carried out by humans was beyond my common sense. So, I mean that it turns out that there are many acts of violence against animals. In this case, the perpetrators actually did not use pet animals, but they used wild animals. So this animal actually seek out content informing animal torture, and they use a dark web forum consisting people who enjoy videos of animal torture. Yeah. And most of them actually prefer to use juvenile long-tail macaque. Yeah. And in the discussion in the dark web forum, they say that several accounts from Indonesia say that they could create macaque torture content and then sell it to the dark room. And the perpetrators actually came from various countries and continents. Why do they like long-tail macaque? Because macaque are cheap in Indonesia, easier to find compared to other primates. The population is quite large, considered as an invasive species. Yeah? And in some places, it is considered as an agricultural pest. Macaque also easy to handle, especially the babies and juvenile. And they are also similar to human in terms of morphology. So they are energetic and also noisy primates. So when they are tortured by the traffickers, they will emit screams and physical responses that will satisfy those who like violence against animals. And yeah, during the forum discussion in the dark web, the account owners in Indonesia, they also said that it would be easy to create animal abuse content because macaque is easy to get, yeah, as I mentioned before, cheap and not protected under the Indonesian wildlife protection regulation. Even IUCN has been categorized long-tail macaque as an endangered species. Yeah, so once the video buyers agree with the video makers, so they will use a Telegram group. Yeah, so the majority of video buyers who understand technology actually also carry out security research in communicating via various messenger platforms. For example, they realize that communication using WhatsApp are easy to intercept by law enforcement officers. So that's why they use Telegram, because it is considered to have better encryptions rather than messenger applications like WhatsApp. That's why, because Telegram actually creates an encrypted tunnel, yeah, for a message in transit, which lowers chance of unauthorized interceptions. However, wildlife traders or suppliers and creators of animal cruelty videos in Indonesia mostly use WhatsApp as their communication tools. So WhatsApp is the most popular messenger in Indonesia, but it carries a higher risk of interception compared to Telegram. So many people are unaware about the security of WhatsApp. That's why the majority of Indonesians still use WhatsApp as their primary means of online communications. So the buyer actually, they will order videos, yeah, according to their request. So for example, like asking video like the long-tail macaque hit by axe or hammer, the stomach is a pump, yeah, genitals are cut, eye pricked with needles, impaled by hot irons, yeah, blended with mixer, drill, burn, tied to death, yeah, fried, dosed with hot waters, cut into pieces, blown up with firecrackers, and many videos. So I did research and I found around 175 videos in one suspect in Indonesia. So it's huge videos that are showing animal torture conducted by the perpetrators. And sorry about the images, but this is they are clips and images recorded by the creators, yeah, using fire tools to torture baby macaques, yeah. So the images are blurred, yeah. So and apologize if the image still cause a discomfort for all of you, yeah. So they hit the long-tail macaque, yeah, hit by axe, burned alive, yeah, and also stabbed by needles and limbs were cut off while they were alive. So this they just took video and then sell it to the buyers. And yeah, after the video draft is agreed by the buyers, and then the buyer will pay according to the type of violence. So the more brutal it is, for example, fried or blended, then the more expensive it will be. So the videos, and the price range from tens to hundreds of US dollars. And interestingly, the 50% of down payment actually usually made with Bitcoin or PayPal. Yeah, and after the video is finished, then the remaining payment will be transferred, and then the video will be sent via Telegram. So they are indeed aware that what they are doing is illegal and carries illegal consequences. Yeah. So using the dark web, using Telegram, and deleting accounts after sending videos are the ways of avoiding legal consequences. And for this case, so the government, the law enforcement officer, they already arrest the suspect and then charging the suspect under for regulation or laws. Yeah. And yeah, finally, the suspect sentenced to 3 years in prison and fined for 5 million rupiah, or a substitute of 3 years in prison. Substitute means that if the perpetrator does not want to pay the fine, then the fine will be replaced with a prison sentence of 3 years. And why this perpetrator can be in prison for 3 years? Because the police investigators quite clever in applying article relevant to the perpetrator's crime. So the perpetrator is not only charged under Article 302 of the Criminal Code, but also other relevant laws, yeah, including Law Number 5, 1990, concerning conservative natural resources and their ecosystem, and also Law Number 41 of 2014 concerning amendment to Republic of Indonesia, Law Number 18 of 2009 concerning animal husbandry and animal health, and also Law Number 8 of 1981 concerning about criminal procedure law. And yeah, so from this case, actually, there are some space of opportunities, yeah, space of improvement for the government and also for public, yeah, to address the issue and the massive of animal tortures and sending video to the collectors. So here are some opportunities for improvement in handling animal cruelty cases that need to be addressed, yeah, as soon as possible. Yeah, some have already been implemented, but much remains to be enhanced, especially the use of technology to detect the presence of animal cruelty videos, laws that support increased deterrence, yeah, through significant penalties, involving online platform, yeah, to have strong strategies in monitoring and reporting wildlife cruelty, and also train officers to conduct online wildlife crime investigation. Yeah. So yeah, I believe this is my end of my side presentation. So I apologize for any mistakes and I made in delivering it, and I will be happy to engage in any follow-up discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwi, for that. I know it's an awful topic, and
Yeah.
you have to be mindful whenever we do presentations on this that it is difficult for people to hear and even to see the blurred images. But this is what we're trying to tackle. So, you know, thank you so much for presenting on that. And we will take questions at the end. So if you've got any questions for any of the speakers today, please put it in the chat. And now I'm going to hand over to Thomas. There you are.
Hello, hello. Okay, I'd like to share my screen, yeah, a little bit. Okay, hello, my name is Thomas and I'm from I serve ERE here. My focus in WPU, or Wildlife Protection Unit. And today I'd like to present you about the Indonesia's illegal parrot trade. So, okay, let's get to the topic.
Sorry, Thomas, it isn't full screen. I don't know if that's what you're trying to do there, but
okay, here we go.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay, so Indonesia's illegal parrot trade. As we know, that Indonesia is a paradise for and habitat for exotic birds, especially parrots and cockatoos. And this is the reason why Indonesia's illegal parrot trade still exists until now, and is now they're using online media for doing selling and buying. And this is what we are going to focus on these presentations. Okay, it's a wildlife trafficking in Indonesia. So Indonesia is known for wildlife trade, both illegal and illegal. It is a major source and transit hub with the significant local markets. Trade has traditionally occurred in wildlife markets that are located in most major cities. Pet keeping is most popular pastime in Indonesia, particularly birds. And since the rise of internet use in Indonesia, online illegal wildlife traffic, or IWT, has also increased. The International Fund for Animal Welfare, or IFAW, found that illegal online wildlife trade has been widespread since 2004. And since 2015, we have recorded nearly 80,000 protected animals being illegally traded on Facebook. Illegal wildlife trade poses threat to biodiversity, ecosystem, the economic livelihood, national security, and public health. And this is the images from BKSDA when they stopped the smuggling. This is the conditions of the parrots and cockatoo, Sitasidia and cockatoo. Next slide. Okay, this is the common question that's still been asking, and why illegal wildlife trafficking still exists in Indonesia. Of course, there are several answers to answer these questions. The most common is the high demands. What means in high demands is the demanding, the need, the want to buy, to collect the animals. Like, okay, I want to pet that animals, or they someone want to take the fur from the animals. That's the high demand. Okay, and the next is improvement in transport and communication networks, such as social media usage for illegal trading action. In this case, is Facebook, because Facebook still used to sell and buy the animals. And next is outdated laws. Of course, the laws these days in Indonesia is still outdated. The most laws is created or 20 to 30 years back, and it's not related to our era right now, because our era right now is most common using online and social media to buy and sell, and this is important. And next is lack of awareness among the government or the public. Education is very important to them, to the government also, to the public, to remind them how important is the wildlife is to ecosystem and to other things. And the last part is rise of interest in online trading. I think that's the answers of these questions. Okay, just short introductions about the WPU, or Wildlife Protection Unit. The Wildlife Protection Unit is a specialized unit of YARI. WPU's main objective to reduce illegal and unsustainable trade and hunting, strengthen habitat protections in YARI's key focus area, as well as support increased quality and quantity of enforcement, investigations and trials carried out by Indonesia's law enforcement officials. It's short about us, about WPU. What is the WPU focus on? We focus on the monitoring and investigations and wildlife trafficking. In this case, is the wildlife trafficking online using Facebook and social media. And the analysis of seizures data, advocacy, capacity building, and law enforcement agency. We're going to focus on this part, monitoring and investigations of wildlife trafficking. That is our topic today. And this is how we work. This is the dashboard that we used to use. As you can see here, there are two different dashboard. The left side here is a dynamic of trend of Kakatu family, Kakatu and Sitasides family on Facebook since 2022. From here, we can see the number of animals, okay, how many animals that already been traded, and how many ads, and how many groups that we monitoring and investigate. So far, we already monitoring 315 groups And from that, we can uncover the identity of the suspect, the name, the number, the location, even the prices of how much they sell for each bird, and where to who, where and when, and we can know everything from here. And after that, after we collect everything, of course we use the police enforcement, and we use this dashboard from the right side here. It's SIPP, which is the dashboard for the what we call it, tracking the cases. From here we can see the number of cases, and also we can see the number of what we call the suspect, and also we can see the number of suspect that already been jailed, the average of the suspect that already paid the fine. Also we can see the category of the animals that been traded in Indonesia. In here we can see the everything, yeah, about the category of animals that been traded. Also we can see the number for each cases in every year, yeah, in each year, every province, and the category of crime. Here we can see everything in here. Okay, so number one is monitoring IWT on Facebook, yeah, and wildlife markets, collecting data from court website SIPP. And the last part is collecting information from media reports, seizure data, arrest, and etc. And this is the the online trafficking trend of cockatoos on Facebook. It starts from 2018 to 2023. As you can see from the slide, this is the data: 7 species and 12,061 total individuals that been traded, and total ads is 8,082. Total groups that I already explained before is 315. That's total groups that we already monitoring, and it's the total demand is 736, and the total of traders is 7,234. Okay, and this is trafficked cockatoo species. Yeah, as you can see here, there's so many species, but there's one species that been common trade by the traders, that is the yellow crest cockatoo, that reached 6,736 individuals. And each of these species is actually is protected by the government, yeah, but still they're doing the tradings, as you can see from the slide here. Okay, next is the online trafficking trend for family of Cetaceae or parrots, yeah, on Facebook since 2021 to 2023. Again, this is the data for the Cetaceae or parrots family. There are 46 species and 34,496 total individuals, and total ads is 3,955. And total of groups that we already monitoring is 142, and total of demands is 1,080. Total of traders that we've been monitoring is 4,969. That's data analyzed from ERI. Okay, this is the 8 most trafficked species from family of Cetaceae or parrots. Yeah, the most common is this Loris lori or black-capped lori, which 9,228 individuals. I cannot explain one by one because the time is limited. So yeah, just you can see from the screen, the data is complete in here. Okay, next is the online trend of cockatoo on Facebook since 2018 to 2023. As you can see here, there's 2 different graphics here. The right side is the species, yeah, the traffic species, which is that I already give you the information in the previous slide. The left side is the category of traffickers. There are 2 different categories of traffickers: the big traders and the small traders. And the big traders here means the traders that sell the species in the large amount, yeah, and in the massive amount for for many, yeah, they have many stocks for the animals, and they sell outside. That's the big traders, and the small traders is traders that sell in small amounts. For example, the pet keepers, yeah, for one species. For example, one person have cockatoo, and that person want to sell that cockatoo to somebody. That's the small traders, and we recorded that the traders in total is 7,234 until now. And the lower side here, as you can see, there is a graphics here. So we focus on this 2022 to 2023. In mid 2022, there is an interesting story behind it. Why the number is getting higher, significantly higher, because there is some, what we call here, some groups, or the army, the navy of Indonesia is involved to smuggling the species, the cockatoo, from Papua to outside Papua. After this, I will show you the news. And this is the example cases, the cases of parrots smuggled by Indonesia's Navy's warship. This is what I'm talking about. So this is the case of warship Teluk Lada 521. He says that they carried the cockatoo from Papua to outside, to smuggle to outside Papua. Yeah, so, and it's true, because after the media has exposed this news, the government of Indonesia quickly take response by put the surveillance in every port of Indonesia to prevent this happen again. So some people say that if there is no fire, no justice, and that's true. So yeah, this is what happened. And this is the illustrations that the protected by country smuggled by military. It's from Jaring, and it's true. Yeah, you can see it from the screen. All right, next, this is the trafficking routes of the traffickers. As you can see here, from the origin is mostly from Papua and Maluku, yeah, because that's their habitats for cockatoo and parrots. Mostly they use Java to main transit hub before they go to the outside of Indonesia. Yeah, some of them using Sumatra first, and then some of them using Borneo before they go to Southeast Asia, even to the Middle East, to Egypt, China to Egypt. Yeah, okay, next, and this is the distributions of cockatoos on Facebook. Like I'm talking before, like what I'm saying before, the most transit hub was in Java. As you can see here, the number are high in Java. Yeah, this is for cockatoo, and this is the distribution of family of Psittacides trafficking. Again, it's still the same. They use Java for the main transit hub before they go to the outside of Indonesia, to Southeast Asia, or to international. And then some of them using Borneo and Sumatra to the next transit before they go up. And this is the cases that we found on the field, and this is the conditions of the cockatoos. As you can see, they put the birds inside the pipeline to avoid detections, and most of them found in the very, very sad condition. Yeah, malnutrition, stressed out. Yeah, as you can see here from the screen. This is a case in Maluku, Saram Island. Next this is more horrible conditions. This is a case in Fak Port, West Papua. As you can see here, lorry has been put inside the bottle, mineral bottle, to avoid detections of the officials to outside of Papua. This is horrible. Yeah. And next is the welfare implications. And many animals die during smuggling attempts due to poor conditions, lack of water, overheating, and etc. And repatriations of an animal to its original habitat requires a lot of efforts and cost, of course it is. And the parrots are very sensitive species that require specialized care. Many animals die in captivity due to improper care and diet. And the last part is the YARI have been supporting West Papua Nature Conservation Agency to improve welfare and the management of such animals. That's the welfare implication so far. And the conclusion that the trade hotspots for parrots and cockatoos are in Java and Sulawesi. Facebook still facilitate organized and open trade, and while still concerned, the trade of parrots and cockatoos has been gradually decreasing over the last 5 years. The law enforcement effort have improved and have resulted in reductions in trade. However, continued effort are needed, and the last part is holistic approach is required. And our priorities today is first thing first, of course, the strong governance, to get the new update of rules and law, and the strong legal frameworks, and the habitat protections and sustainabilities. And next is equality of education opportunities, which is giving the educations to people, to local people, especially to governments, and comprehensive market regulations demand reductions. Last part, and most important, because today's online era is cybersecurity and surveillance need to be tighter again. Okay, so I think that's the end of my presentation. It's short because it's based on fact and data, so I have to be careful to giving you the informations. If there's any questions, please.
Thank
ask.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thomas, so much. I know there's so much to cover. All of us could speak for a long time on these things. Thank you so much. And finally, we have AfA Bhupal, if you want to take the floor, Ambu.
Thank you, Nicola, and hi, everyone. Without further ado, I will start sharing so I can close my video as well. Just to introduce myself, my name is Anbu. I'm from ACES, a small charity organization in Singapore. So let me just share. Okay. I hope you're able to see the full screen version.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we are a charity organization in Singapore which works on different animal protection issues and focus mainly on addressing the root cause of the issues that we work on. So we do this by different focus areas. Mostly in Singapore, one of the things that we are known for is for the wildlife rescue work that we do. However, the backbone of the work is on advocacy work related to education, promoting cruelty-free lifestyle, and also tackling the illegal wildlife trade. So the need for rescue services can come down over the years. The focus area on tackling the illegal wildlife trade has evolved over the past few years, not only because of the fact that there is a need in Singapore, which is recognized as one among the top 10 hubs for trafficking wildlife in the world, but also there's been a lot of efforts that's been put in by in the form of investigations or enforcement effort by the local enforcement agency, the government agency, called as NParks. And there's also a lot of efforts put in outreach to increase the awareness, general public awareness, to report crimes or to learn what is legal, what is illegal in Singapore. So there's been a lot of improvements, and it has resulted in putting a huge dent on the physical trade in wildlife and the parks. Sorry, I just realized that I did not turn off my video. So and there has been a lot more awareness, and we have practically managed to wipe out the physical trade of tiger parts, bear parts, rhino parts, or even live prohibited wild animals in Singapore. But we realized that it has now moved online. Ever since 2011, we have noticed that many of our sting operations had to move to online trade. So just a few examples on what has been done, particularly pertinent to the Telegram itself. So we heard a lot of mention about Telegram as a mode of transmitting cruelty content or also sale of wildlife from the earlier presenters. It is also used as a very key means for Singapore as well. Even though many of us know Singapore as someone that is known for stricter regulations and fines and penalties and a very strong legislative system. So this is from a case that we handled just before COVID hit.
Sorry to interrupt, Ambu, but we're not seeing your slides move on. We're just seeing your intro slide.
Oh. Let me just stop and reshare. Sorry.
We can share for you as well if that's necessary.
If that is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what is happening. That is.
No worries, Ambu. We can do that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep, I'm sharing screen. Should be able to see.
Okay. So in the next slide, we noticed that a lot of trade has gone online. And in the next slide, this is just an example that I was talking about. A man was offering false burial on Telegram. So our crime unit actually does investigative work in order to complement the enforcement efforts of the government agencies. So we post as buyers to try and meet up with the seller to find out more information. And this man was selling us a crocodilian. So in the next slide, you will see that we actually put in a lot of effort to meet up, even invest some money to meet up with the seller. So you can really tell, I think all of us know that there's a lot of efforts that is put in to do a reactive sting operation, meaning the problem is already there online. The animal is there, probably in Singapore already, and we are just trying to put out the fire. Next slide, please. And this is also a very recent case from 2024. A young person was sentenced to probation, meaning for community service, for poaching a pregnant pangolin in Singapore and from the wild. They are native in Singapore, and selling her on Telegram. So under the laws, under just one law, which is Wildlife Act, this person could have been fined up to $50,000 or prison sentence up to 2 years. And the next slide, the person who bought this pregnant pangolin from the young person actually sold her again on Telegram. And this time he sold her to an NPAX officer undercover, so a government officer undercover. So that you can tell that there's a lot of effort that is being put into fight fires, which mean the problem is already there. And Telegram was a great conduit to do this. So in my next slide, you'll see that we realized that a lot of this trade is happening on Telegram, and we didn't know what is the trend. But we also see that so much effort is being put in enforcing the laws. So it's not like people are not doing their jobs. People are doing it, but it still seems to be a problem. So we embarked on doing this study to find out what is the impact of all the enforcement work, education work that's being done on the trade that's happening on Telegram. So in the next slide, what we did was we collected data over 61 days, but with a gap of 2 years. So we did one round in 2021, and we did another round in 2023 for 2 months. So we collected whatever information that is available on publicly available chat groups on Telegram that were openly selling and buying prohibited wild animals in Singapore. And these chat groups were created solely for selling and buying wild animals. So over this period of 122 days, we detected about 1,751 prohibited animals. And for Singapore as a small country, this is a huge number. And you might be wondering that, they are either sold or expressed interest to buy. But in the next slide, sorry. Yeah. What we did was we looked into a little bit more granularity into the details that we were collecting. So we looked at the species, the number of animals, and whether people were willing to buy or they are just selling, and the origin is stated. Sometimes individuals do mention where they acquired the animal from, whether the animal is already in Singapore or willing to be smuggled willing to smuggle them upon demand, which means we can use it to raise awareness that once you place an order, you are driving this whole chain of cruelty and trafficking. And unfortunately, in Singapore, possession of wildlife is an offense. However, the act of buying or wanting to buy is not directly listed as an offense under the law. So the publicly available report that we churned out is actually available on our website. So I'm just going to share small pieces of information from the report in the next few slides. So in the next slide, what we did was we did not engage with anyone. We did not have any conversation in the group chats. What we collected was publicly available. This was consciously done to show that we don't need extra investigative skills to go and find out what's happening. Come on, this is happening very openly. So it is to show that people were very complacent about committing crimes. And we saved all the screenshots. So there were thousands of screenshots and images. I think many of the other speakers would know, the organizations would know that it is so important that we have to collect this information. So the data is collected. And we did this after 2 years to see that whether the enforcement efforts had an impact on the trade itself and whether it is working. We need to do something else different. So in the next slide, what we did also was we presented trends in the membership. For example, we showed the number of sellers, number of buyers, whether they were CITES listed, IUCN listed, everything was presented in our report. And also we realized that many transactions actually happen by direct messaging between the seller and the buyer. So we would never know whether an animal was sold, how many animals were sold. We actually had to mention it. So sometimes we might, as an organization, we would wonder that, hey, this information is never available, but we can actually use that as an angle to show that it is so important that not knowing is actually more dangerous than the figures being out in the open. So as an investigative government agency or an organization, it's important for us to be able to know the trends, the actual accurate trends. The more and more it gets encrypted, the more dangerous it gets. So in the next slide. So this is just a snapshot of what happened between the 2 years. So you can definitely see that all the blue turquoise bars show that there's been an increase, a huge increase between what happened in 2021 to 2023. So it really does show that the enforcement efforts are not deterring people enough. And people were willing to still take the risk and openly trade and buy wild and prohibited wild animals in Singapore. And you can really see that the number of individual sellers skyrocketed. I mean, here, the increase is really high. And this data is also publicly available in our report. In the next slide. We also presented some of the key animals that agencies might be interested to note, with the number of animals being offered as well. So it's all in the report again. So they can see that what animals are in the increasing trend and how many animals are being traded. In the next slide. What we did during the report was, because we were observing as a silent observer in the group chat, we were also noticing that people were alerting each other to say that there's a raid that just happened. So we were taking screenshots of those to put it in the report to show that, the sellers, the traders probably know that groups like us and the enforcement agencies are in the group chat, but the level of complacency shows that we need to really address this using another additional angle. So in this screenshot, you can see that NParks is a local government agency who does enforcement work. They're alerting each other that they have raided my place too. 3 houses have been raided. So they were willing to be able to alert each other. In the next slide. So in our report, we took the conscious effort not to expose the chat names or user names because we had passed all the information to the enforcement agency. And it is to highlight that the efforts to tackle this issue needs to go beyond the enforcement work, and to highlight that the increasing trend could be beyond the enforcement capacity, and it needs high-level changes, whether it's a law policy level changes. And just to add on to our methodology is that we omitted any repeat requests from the same buyer or repeat offers from the same sellers. So our data has been kept clean. And in the next slide. So in our report, which is actually available online, is that we presented a thorough and detailed comparative analysis of legislative instruments available around the world. So we included that in our appendix D. So what we did was we reviewed what the rest of the world is doing. So when we did a report, it's not to show that there's this huge problem, but also we included recommendations. So in our recommendations, we went through what are the positive things that's happening elsewhere and what can we adapt from there in Singapore. And we also acknowledge and understand that follow-up will take time for such work because we are introducing this topic to an agency which is already drowned with issues related to monetary scams, security, drugs. There's so many other crimes that they are looking at, and they may not view wildlife as something that's directly impacting wildlife trade as something that's directly impacting humans. So in the next slide. Just to give a summary of what we actually recommended, because the report is long, so I thought I will just summarize the headings, which is we concluded that the self-regulation is inadequate. What we did was we reviewed what are the policies that all these platforms have, from Meta to some of the e-commerce platforms in Singapore, like Shopee, Carousel. There are quite a few. And also Telegram and WhatsApp. So we reviewed their policies and wordings, and we realized that even when you report, the listing does not get removed quickly. So the self-regulation is definitely inadequate, and And most often for wildlife trade, live animal trade, the transactions happen very quickly. So even if the listing gets removed after 3 working days, 2 working days, it is really too late. So it's not actually addressing the root cause of the problem, meaning the transaction already has happened. So we realized that removal might not be actually resolving the issue. And number 3, the challenge was that encryption and anonymity challenges any form of collecting information, meaning it's very difficult to, we all know that Telegram is heavily encrypted. We also know that platforms like Meta, they have a lot of closed market groups, marketplaces, which means you need to be a member, which means NGOs like all of us or even government agencies, we need to spend a lot more resources to be able to infiltrate into multiple groups to just monitor. So these encryption levels are put in by the platforms, which basically impedes any collection of intel information. So the last but the key recommendation was holding the platforms responsible. So that is the key part of our recommendation. So I invite you to go through our report to look into it. So in the next slide is like a summary screenshot of that last point, which is that we reviewed all the legislative pieces and we gave this chunk to say that can we include content associated with illegal trade in wildlife, fauna and flora, in the list of harmful content, because currently Singapore's Online Criminal Harms Act talks about harmful content. So what we proposed is, here is one way to address it. Can we include this in? So this will place the responsibility and make it as a compliance issue for platforms to ensure that their platforms are clean and they are not becoming a conduit for illegal activities and harmful content. So we also asked that, proposed that the crimes offenses under the 2 wildlife-related legislation in Singapore be included in the Code of Practice for Online Safety. So we felt that these are direct asks, and we know that it's going to take some time, but we have just recently published a report and we are starting our engagement. So hopefully, next time when we have such a meeting, we might be able to, have a update on this. But I expect that it will take some time. So I think that is my last slide. And there is a thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to share. You.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ambu. We've heard about so much great work today. It's really impressive, but also really demonstrates the scope of the problem. Okay, so we have come to time for this session, but there's so many great questions and a lot of good discussion still to be had. So what we're going to do, we have got a short break scheduled, and then there's another session in this room, the main room. So what I'm asking is anyone who would like to continue the conversation about SMACC's presentations today, please join us in the breakout room now. If someone from the team could just put up the little screenshot of how to move, but I think basically, if you want to move to the breakout room, you can go to more, or there might be a breakout room icon and you can click on that and select to join the breakout room. I hope the speakers are okay with doing that. And yeah, we just have so many great questions. I'd like to give it some extra time if that's okay. So I will see you in the breakout room. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Arcilla. There's the instruction for moving over. So yeah, people that want to join that, join us now. And then Arcilla is going to take you through a break in this room for those that want to stay and watch the policy talk in about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. We're going to give some time for people to transition to the breakout room. Nicola, I believe you will need to, well, the rest of the SMACC team will be moving there too. So I'm just going to give about like a minute or so. Hello there, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you have your coffee or your necessary toilet break, etc., or some cookies. It's raining here, so I hope you don't hear any background noise. For the next session, we'll have a Sustainable Symphony orchestrating a cohesive approach to animal welfare, human rights, and climate solutions by the AfA Policy Coalition, happening here in this main room. So without further ado, Maan, over to you.
Thank you so much, Asila. And for your information, it's raining heavily here too. So I guess it's like we're connected on some levels. So hello, everyone, and welcome to our sessions. My name is Ngọc Anh Nguyễn, and I'm the lead coordinator of the policy coalitions under the Asia's for Animals Coalitions, or AfA. So the AfA Policy Coalitions is a member-driven working group that aims to demystify animal policy advocacy and help advocates at all levels, from local grassroots organizations to large international NGOs, participate in policy-related work. We organize events, provide an international support network, develop and share resources, and help members obtain support from external partners. Members are provided with regular news, updates and communications, and are invited to quarterly meetings. We encourage member organizations to both offer and seek help from each other and work together in the policy advocacy space. And for more information about the Asia for Animals Coalitions and our working group, please visit our website at asiaforanimals.com. And now let me introduce our distinguished speakers for today's sessions. First, we have Atamush Said. Atamush is a BIPOC award-winning Pakistani interspecies justice lawyer, activist, philanthropist, and teacher. He is an animal law professor at the University of Central Punjab Law School in Lahore, where he teaches Pakistan's first animal law advocacy course. He's the founding managing partner at Environmental and Animal Rights Consultants, Pakistan's first dedicated animal and environmental law and policy firm. Atamush also co-founded the charity Doings Foundations, which works on interspecies justice and run Pakistan's first disaster zone farm animal shelter and plant-based school. Atamush has completed 4 law degrees, including a human rights, international law from the University of Michigan, an animal law LMN, and an environmental law LMM from Lewis and Clark Law School, and a BA from Lahore University of Management Sciences in Pakistan. And next, we have Dr. Kate Litton. Dr. Kate Litton is an animal welfare scientist and experienced leader in animal welfare, agriculture, and food safety policy and regulations. She is a committed One Health, One Welfare advocate with a particular interest in supporting businesses to make positive change for nature, and serves on the boards and not-for-profit organizations involved in conservation and animal welfare. She has previously served as the chair of the World Organizations for Animal Health, Regional Animal Welfare Strategies Advisory Group for Asia and the Pacific, and remains involved in international, regional, and local animal welfare initiatives. And last but not least, we have Dr. Mark Jones. Dr. Jones trained as a vet at Liverpool University and worked extensively in fish health and disease control before spending 5 years traveling and working on rescue and rehabilitation projects for various species in South America and Asia. He holds master's degrees in both aquatic and wild animal health and has several years of experience in the non-governmental animal protection sector. And since 2014, Dr. Jones has been with the UK-based international wildlife charity, Born Free, where he currently serves as head of policy, managing a team focused on promoting progressive legislations concerning wildlife conservation, management, trade, and the welfare of both free living and captive wild animals at international, national, and local levels. Without further ado, let me invite our first speaker, Atamush, to begin his presentations. Atamush, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Nok. Can I please share a video that I requested, if that's possible?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm actually going to be speaking on interspecies justice, which is essentially an idea where we connect human, animal, and environmental rights. It's one step ahead of One Health. And I would actually like to show you a video of some of our work that we're doing to show like how does it look like. I hope you can see it.
Hey, Atamush, just to check whether you should share audio. We can see the video, but we can't see we can't hear it.
Oh, then it's probably the internet. So there's subtitles.
Okay, but you can actually check in the share screen, the share audio option. You can just click that box. So it should be, you can stop sharing now. And then when you share
Okay.
again, there's the option to share audio. Should be somewhere at the right
I
side.
see it now. Sorry. Thank you.
There you go. You're welcome.
I'm really sorry.
Interspecies justice is basically an idea where humans, animals, and the environment can live together. I'm actually an interspecies justice lawyer and activist. I teach animal law at a university in Pakistan. And animals are kind of invisible, at least in Pakistan. And when Mao came into my life, she showed me that animals exist in our community as well. And they're not just invisible beings, they have their own rights. I genuinely feel that my life's goal is to make the world a better place for humans, animals, and the environment. The intersection is actually true for all three. Because you have to create systems where you're generating kindness and some kind of resources for all parties. So we install carbon neutral, solar-powered water projects across the country. And water access is a huge issue in my country. And the water projects actually provide clean drinking water to both humans and animals. When the floods happened in 2022, 1/3 of my country was underwater. Over 1.1 million farm animals died. We were rescuing humans, and what we thought was we could do the same things for farm animals as well. And eventually we were funded actually by Humane Society International. In 2023, we were able to create this facility. Every month we treat around 500 farm animals there. We actually started a small school. These people could not even go to school because they didn't have access to food. So what we did was we created a different kind of a curriculum. We were teaching them about animals and we were giving them food. Eventually, we shifted the whole meal plan and created the first plant-based school in Pakistan. That's what interspecies justice essentially means. The way we treat our animals is eventually the way we treat the environment and the humans as well.
I hope you could see that. Now I will share my presentation itself. Apologies. Okay. And I hope everybody could see it. That's what I essentially mean by interspecies justice. And normally, all of my presentations start with an honest acknowledgement of what we're doing as a human species. And this is something that I always start with. I'm sure all of you have read this quote many times in your life, but what I'm asking you to do is read it from a perspective that animals are, all humans and animals as well. So interspecies justice would essentially mean the suffering of all beings, not just animals, but humans as well. And particularly in a country like Pakistan, this is extremely important because, as we've heard in previous presentations, in Pakistan particularly, animals are firstly invisible. You don't see them a lot because human suffering is at such a high level that it's really hard for people to understand. Secondly, there are not a lot of resources available as well. So the best way to actually go about interspecies justice and advocate for animal rights in Pakistan is to adopt this approach where you're helping humans, animals, and the environment at the same time. This is a picture from the Pakistani 2022 floods. To give context, 1,700 human beings died in this floods. 1/3 of my country was underwater at 1.1 million farm animals died as well. And we faced an economic loss of $30 billion. And to expect a country to, go beyond human rights when they're not being provided in the perfect instance, like even normal instances, it's really hard for these people. And this is basically us working with them in the community, on the ground, and the grassroots, to see that animals also are victims of disasters as well. And this is something we all know, but they don't. So you have to work with them
And this is where what we did was we created this first of its kind emergency veterinary camp. We provided them food and we worked with the community, and we saved over 8,000 farm animal lives. Essentially, because and why this was successful was because we have been working with the community for at least 10 years now, and now they know us, and so that trust gap is actually not there. And this is something really important that we need to understand. And after we go through this, these are a few anthropocentric questions that we ask ourselves. And this is something I always ask whenever I'm presenting. Is like, okay, let's think from a human perspective. How are we going to feed our population in 2050? And how are you going to save the human lives given the way we do things as well? And both of the answers, actually, even from an anthropocentric perspective, move towards the idea of interspecies justice. And this is something we all know about, but when you see it happening on the ground, it's a completely different experience. And for people in Pakistan to consider their human rights while at the same time advocating for animals and the planet is the approach that essentially works. And this is something, a new term that was essentially coined by Dr. Hope Fedorsian, whom I work with, essentially. And this idea has been fueling most of my work. And so, give you an example, this is something you will not see across the world. So, this is very unique. This is a clean water project in the middle of a desert in Pakistan that is providing clean drinking water to both animals and children at the same time. So what we're doing here is that we are trying to help the community understand that their children have the same needs as the animals as well. And the project, by the way, is carbon neutral too. So we make sure that the environmental footprint is as minimal as possible. I know these are pretty out of the world ideas, but you have to be very creative when you don't have the resources. So essentially, when we built this first water project, it was only for human beings. The animals came eventually later because of my cat, the video that you saw. And so since then, we have been incorporating all of these three values together as much as we can for different kind of animals using different water projects across the country in Pakistan. And so we have built around 1,600 plus of these clean water projects, which help millions of animals and humans annually. And just to show you a perspective of one small water project does for a community, the yellow thingy you see on the bottom of the screen, I apologize for that, is basically one of those projects. And this is the community that's benefited by these because water as a resource is very scarce. And so if the humans don't get it, it also means that the animals will also not get it. And drought is something that's a constant disaster that happens across Pakistan. And so many animals' lives are lost that can be saved. So this kind of a solution does work, and we have seen it work on the ground in the community. These are some of the pictures from our disaster zone farm animal project. This was the first time we went into the flood zones in 2022. This kind of work has been done for the first time, and this taught us a lot of lessons. Firstly, there was what we saw in the floods was as well that people were trying to actually bring their animals alongside them, especially goats, because uh, even though they were livelihood for them, they were also part of family as well. And in Pakistan, at least outside urban cities, the relationship these families have with their animals is quite different. It's not just using for slaughter. They are a part of a family. It's like a multi-species justice family. But of course, if we want to prevent other harms that happen to these animals, we have to build a relationship with them and guide them onto advocating for farm animals alongside their relief. This is where we started this first of a kind facility in Pakistan, which I'm sure many of you not know about, but my country has a farm animal shelter now, where we don't even have a proper animal rights movement. So this place is something we started in 2023. We inaugurated in January, and ever since then, we have been providing veterinary aid to at least 500 farm animals on a daily basis. At the same time, we're working with the community as well, because you will not find many stray animals in rural Pakistan. You will not find dogs at all here. So it's entirely farm animals. And this is the first big step in our long journey on improving farm animal welfare conditions to farm animal rights eventually, but it flows alongside the human rights issues that we work on as well. So this is how it happened. But at the same time, what interspecies justice also means is you have to take care of the human community as well, especially in a country like Pakistan. So what we did was the same things we did for the animals, we did for the human beings as well, and vice versa. So building these houses, providing medical facilities. This is an example of an indigenous house that is also common in Africa as well.
So instead of bringing in international technology that people, would get alienated with, or bringing in new words, you have to actually work with the system and help install them facilities that work for them, some things that they're already understanding about or have knowledge about. So these houses, which don't cost a lot, were something we built around 1,500 of these to help the communities and build that relationship. We also built societies that had a clean water project alongside them as well. So if there were any animals in the community, they would benefit too from it. This is something we also started out, another ambitious wild idea, which was to starting a school in a disaster zone. And this was because most of the schools that we were working with were destroyed in the floods. This is a very common that happens across the world. So we created a different trauma-informed curriculum where we were teaching them about things that they didn't know, but at the same time, we were also teaching them about animals. And we used different creative activities, in this case, artwork. And this is really good. I can never draw this good. And so we were trying to build that relationship in these children from a very young age. And eventually, we also shifted the meal plan to a plant-based meal plan. And this is for the animals, but also for the environment. It would make absolutely no sense to feed them animal agriculture, which was the leading cause of the floods that eventually happened. So it would make no sense, and we have to combine these values and work with the community. Unfortunately, the school is closed now because all of the children have shifted to their original schools. So we are starting a different kind of a project that we are going to go into schools and deliver these sessions, at least 40 plus sessions across the country, across Lahore, where I live, and help them introduce plant-based meals, at least one dish at a time in the next calendar year, which is one of our ongoing projects. Then after animals and humans comes the environment. This is where we're basically directing the water from these clean water projects to build these green community vegetable gardens. And we're planning to build 1,600 of these because they're linked directly to our clean water projects. And one of these supports 40 families with plant-based food, which is completely organic, animal cruelty free for the entire year. And this is actually us going into the grassroots, working with the communities and in a way veganizing Pakistan, but from a more respectful perspective. That solves the problem of food security as well, removes animals from the food system, and helps these communities thrive as well. Another character or stakeholder that's often forgotten in interspecies justice or disasters is women. Women actually have a much stronger and closer connection with animals and the elderly and the children in their community. Given Pakistan is very patriarchal, women actually had a role of getting unclean, murky water for their families by walking miles. Now they don't have to because these projects are within their communities. And this is an actual picture. These are just children, and they have this responsibility to work for, get this water. Now they don't have to. That problem is solved. But at the same time, we're empowering them because these are the most important change makers in a disaster context if you want to save animal lives alongside human lives. And this is something we did, and it was very, very successful. So this was kind of something our progress has been in the 2022 floods. And we are, focusing all of these areas to build an animal rights movement that's indigenous, that's respectful, and can grow. While my current presentation doesn't cover my legal part, I'm also an animal rights lawyer. So I often sue the government on these issues, but I'm trying to build that relationship between the government and the NGOs. So it's very strategic. But to give you a case study example, which I would believe everybody understands, is of the Pakistani floods. So there were a lot of casualties. There were 1,700 deaths of human beings, but at the same time, there were over 1.1 million farm animal deaths. And as you can understand, the term livestock is used because that's the general term. And data for any other animal deaths was not collected at all. And the reason for that is livestock is considered livelihood. And this is all anthropocentric. And that's why we had data for these animals. And for the others, we didn't get anything. So even in that context, this is really important. So there was actually a study done right after the floods in UK at the Imperial College of London, and they basically predicted that the relationship between the floods and the climate change that happened was something that was predictable. And what they focus on was climate change, something we all know about, but this is alien to Pakistan. So I have to bring this point home as much as I can. So the relationship was right there. And this is something that we can truly acknowledge, that anthropocentrism is something that's completely misaligned with interspecies justice. But there are a few things that we also need to understand is that we're asking the food system itself too much as well, without understanding how difficult or hard it is to even, go through the different pipelines that exist in the food system. We're asking the food system to solve the problem of malnutrition or food security. We're asking the food system to solve the problem of livelihood. We're asking the food system to solve climate change. We're asking the food system to solve public health issues as well. And we're also asking for animal rights as well, without understanding how complex it is. So the food system, in the way we do things right now, is something that's misunderstood, which makes it a victim. And this is a stat that I normally share. We all understand from a food security perspective, where only 17 calories out of 100 are something that we get from eating the animals, while we are using all of the land across the world to basically feed these animals, which could eventually go to feed the people. So these are some stats that I always use, and we are using these currently to file a case at the Supreme Court of Pakistan on the impacts of climate change and agriculture from a policy perspective. And these are something that we are using, especially the impact of greenhouse gas emissions, because that's the thing people want to hear, human lives, and connected with the disaster itself, but in a way that helps us save animal lives as well. So the connection is extremely important. And once again, you have to start from a grassroots perspective. And given Pakistan's responsibility under the Paris Agreement as well, the way we are treating the food system right now and not understanding it properly, there is no way that we are going to achieve the 2-degree target or the 1.5-degree one that I'm pretty sure that we cannot meet now, given the way things are happening. This is another stat that we often forget, which is from a disaster perspective. And given globally, we don't have many disaster protection laws for animals. They don't exist, except in certain countries like the US. There's one in Indonesia. There's development for developing it in New Zealand. In my country, there's nothing at all, which I'm trying to change. So the way this system is connected and the way we are doing things right now, we can predict at least 5-6 disasters per year happening across the world. And that means millions, if not billions, of animal lives that will be lost alongside human lives as well. And countries like Pakistan will be the ones that will be affected the most. So this is the direct relation that interspecies justice and food systems and disasters have. You will understand all of these, but the main one that I want to highlight is intergenerational equity. So the thing is, what's happening in Pakistan right now is they're currently developing a new law that enhances livestock production in Pakistan as a mechanism to boost the economy. But the thing is, the very reason the disasters in 2022 happened was because of the food system. And again, relying on that same food system to solve the economy problem puts countries like Pakistan in a cycle of intergenerational inequity that they can never escape from. And that's a very dark or stark reality for humans, animals, and the environment. And this is something we need to understand and acknowledge in the way the work we do. But I hope I'm always on the optimistic side, and this is something that I always share at the end of my presentation, which is that we only have one life to make a difference. Please do it today. Which can mean anybody, have only one life to feel the difference as well. So do it today. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope I did this, and I hope people learned that there are so many different ways to work with the community, and there are so many other things that we do, which I'm of course happy to share in Q&A as well that I couldn't cover here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Atamus, for that very insightful presentations. Your work in interspecies justice and disaster response is truly inspiring. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Kathleen to share her insights. Dr. Kathleen, please go ahead. And while we wait for Dr. Kathleen to get ready, let's take a moment to come up with some questions for Atamus. You can put the questions in the chat box. Thank you.
Greetings, Nyopan. Are you ready for me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so I hope everyone can see my slides okay.
Yes.
Excellent. So thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. I'm very pleased to be speaking to a great audience of animal advocates. What I hope from my talk is to encourage more work between nature advocates and animal advocates. So what I have to say follows on really well from Altamush and from the work that we've just heard about. Thank you. So we'll cover climate change and animal welfare. What is One Health, One Welfare? Using One Health, One Welfare to address climate change. And I'll go through some case studies to give examples. So we already know a lot about climate change and animal welfare, and I'm sure you'll be familiar with the impacts. And again, we've heard about some of those already in previous speakers in previous sessions. We're talking about direct impacts on animals and indirect and hidden impacts on animals.
Sorry, Dr. Kate. Hi.
Hello.
So sorry to interrupt, but we couldn't see you somehow.
Can you see me now?
Not really. We only see the background, the Zoom background.
Is that better?
Okay. Oh, yes, we see you now. So sorry to interrupt.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. So when we're talking about the impacts of climate change, obviously direct impacts include heat stress, and then we have impacts of natural disasters like we've just heard about, and these are two examples of floods from New Zealand. We then have indirect impacts, which include increases in pests and diseases themselves, which have an impact on climate change through increasing emissions and changes in emissions from livestock and livestock farming. And then we also have the impacts on animals and animal welfare of the measures that we take to address climate change and to reduce emissions. So for example, we've got one here from sustainable energy production, so the impacts of wind farms, for example. We also, of course, have the impacts of things that we do to reduce emissions in livestock, and I've got a couple of examples here. So it should be clear from these examples that I've shown you that they also have an impact on our communities and also on the environment. So what is One Health, One Welfare? The concept of One Health, One Welfare, again, we've heard from other speakers, and I've put a couple of quotes here that are ones that I really like because they highlight there that we've got animals, humans, and the environment interlinked. And you can see there that we're talking about using a One Health, One Welfare approach and replacing exploitation and annihilation with stewardship and responsibility for our planet and all its life forms. So what does this mean? So I just wanted to go through a few practical steps that we could take as nature advocates and animal advocates, and I've grouped them together as prioritising together, planning together, and carrying out programs together. Firstly, I want to talk about nature-based solutions, such as restoration, planting, and rewilding, which I'll talk a bit about, and responding and adapting to natural disasters. And then I'll also briefly mention livestock farming. So firstly, One Health, One Welfare and nature-based solutions. Nature-based solutions include things like planting trees, restoring wetland and our coastal environments to improve biodiversity, reduce emissions, sequester carbon, and prevent the natural disasters such as flooding and slips and so on. There's an issue with what's some refer to as unwanted wildlife or as animal pests, and they have a negative impact on these types of programs. So I wanted to give a brief example from New Zealand, where rabbits that you can see on the screen are an introduced animal from Europe. We have a community project here that's replanting forest that's been working for 10 years. And you can see there the damage that the rabbits are doing to the trees. And the solution that the local authorities wanted to introduce here was releasing this chemical compound that you can see there called pindone. And here are some views that you can see expressed about pindone here. And the solution there was taking a science-based approach so that we could understand the impacts of the different control tools for rabbits. And this work was then used by nature advocates, animal advocates, scientists and others. It included input from people who were involved with compassionate conservation. So that's Born Free, for example, that we hear from in with our next speaker. And you can see what I've highlighted down the bottom is where the idea was that we get good environmental outcomes, but that they take animal welfare and community values into account. So this is an example of what's essentially a One Health, One Welfare approach, where nature and animal advocates have worked together to prioritise and therefore improve outcomes. My next brief example is One Health, One Welfare approach responding to climate-related emergencies. This slide here shows the impacts of Cyclone Gabrielle, which we had in New Zealand in February last year. And you can see here down the bottom of the screen the damage that was done to the farmland, so the livestock farmland in New Zealand, and the damage to the bridges over the river. So it should be clear from this that there's an impact on the communities as well as on animals and animal welfare, a significant economic impact on farmers and a significant environmental impact as well. So the solution that was put together here with government support and the involvement of animal groups that were essentially animal rescue, but also animal welfare and emergency groups, and farmers and transport operators and government authorities, was to create a system where the livestock trucks that you can see in the centre there were assisted to cross rivers where the road had been damaged and remove livestock from those damaged farms when the livestock had no more food left. So this is an example where planning is a good One Health, One Welfare approach, where nature advocates, community charities and organisations involved in the community, government and other authorities were together involved and committed to supporting the activity. That's enabled by this plan that you can see here. This is a New Zealand law that requires the interests of animals and the environment and our communities to be taken into account. So this is an example of the One Health, One Welfare approach working together in the plan or planning area. Finally, I just briefly wanted to mention a One Health, One Welfare approach in livestock farming. So most of you, probably all of you, will be aware that one of the recommendations is to reduce the numbers of livestock for farming, and that will therefore reduce emissions, and it will reduce the impacts of climate change and over time reduce climate change. Obviously, with so much of the world being involved in livestock farming or involved in the processing and production of food from animals, this has a significant impact on communities as well. So it's really important that one way that we can think of it is by taking a One Health, One Welfare approach also in livestock farming. So what you can see here on my screen is just one way of thinking about this issue. And this is the World Organization for Animal Health vision paper on animal welfare that describes a one health, one welfare approach to livestock farming. So just in conclusion, hopefully I've just given you a few examples that, along with our previous speaker, and also you'll hear from Mark, will show how we can use a one health, one welfare approach to prioritise issues together, plan at a national, regional and local level, and work together on collaborative programs to lead to the best outcomes overall. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kate Layton, for that very enlightening presentations. Your advocacy for one health and one welfare approaches is very essential for creating sustainable solutions for all. Next, let's hear from Dr. Mark Jones. Dr. Jones, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'll just see if I can get my presentation set up.
Yeah, it is sharing, Doctor.
Can you see that? Can you see that in full screen view?
Yeah, we can see it in full screen.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks very much. My name's Mark Jones. As Nokhan said in her introduction, I'm a veterinarian by training. I worked in veterinary practice and in aquaculture and fisheries before traveling extensively and working in wildlife rescue and rehabilitation, initially in South America and latterly in Asia. And since 2008, I've been working in the NGO sector doing international policy work. And in 2014, I joined the Born Free Foundation based in the south of England, where I'm currently head of policy. Born Free is 40 years old this year, and while these days we've expanded our activities to include field conservation projects, education and policy work, the charity's always retained its core focus on the welfare and well-being of individual animals, and continues to promote the incorporation of animal welfare considerations into all human activities that involve or affect wildlife. And to that end, we promote what we call compassionate conservation, which aims to fully incorporate welfare considerations into conservation programs, and we seek to expose and reduce the exploitation of wild animals. My talk kind of follows on from Kate Litton's talk, so apologies if I repeat any of the points she's made, albeit I'll be focusing more on wildlife. I think we'll be hearing a lot about One Health and One Welfare and the international consensus principles during these sessions, which is no bad thing. I'm sure we'd all agree that animal welfare is important. Many would consider improving animal welfare to be a moral and ethical imperative, and I'd count myself among them. I would strongly argue that it's also essential for successful wildlife conservation. It's clearly important to maximise the chances of success of the rescue and rehabilitation of individual animals, and to reintroduction and rewilding efforts, which are becoming an increasing feature of nature restoration programmes. But there's also increasing recognition of the social and cultural complexity of animal groupings for many species, and the importance of taking this into account through conservation practice to ensure social cohesion. We're beginning to understand that individual animals are important to and play different roles in their family groups and wider populations, and that their welfare and well-being needs to be taken into account to ensure social cohesion. However, getting policymakers and some conservation practitioners to recognise the importance of animal welfare remains a challenge. And the cumulative impacts of climate change, habitat loss and degradation, pollution, escalating exploitation, invasive species, and some of the responses to COVID-19 and other human health risks are resulting in something of a tsunami of pressures on wild animals, which is not only devastating for species and biodiversity conservation, but also exacerbates welfare harms. So I guess the question is, could the global crises we currently face provide opportunities to promote wider recognition of the importance of animal welfare? We're arguably in the midst of three major global crises. First, the climate crisis, driven principally by greenhouse gas emissions resulting in global warming, which presents enormous challenges for all life on Earth. As I'm sure we're all aware, 2023 was recently declared the hottest year on record, with the UK Met Office declaring that global average temperature last year was 1.46 degrees centigrade above the pre-industrial baseline. That's perilously close to the objective of maintaining any rise below a 1.5 centigrade ceiling. We need to reduce global net CO2 emissions by about 45% from 2010 levels by 2030, reaching net zero around 2050 to meet current targets. And at our current rates of progress, we will fail to do this. Second, we have the crisis facing global biodiversity. The 2019 Global Assessment Report on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services concluded that 1 million species are at risk of extinction, and a paper released since suggests the number of species at risk could be double this. Nature's decline is unprecedented. Extinction rates are accelerating. Current global response is inadequate, and transformative changes to our relationship with the natural world are urgently needed. And the third crisis is the global human health crisis. COVID-19 has resulted in more than 700 million reported cases and almost 7 million deaths. At its peak in 2021 to 22, almost 4 million cases were being recorded every day. And as we know, the pandemic brought the world to a virtual standstill and led to huge economic consequences. But COVID-19 is just the latest in a long line of pandemics, albeit arguably the most devastating to date. The UN talks of an era of pandemics, with outbreaks of new and emerging infectious diseases becoming increasingly common. And 3/4 of new and emerging infectious diseases that affect people are believed to be of zoonotic or animal origin, and more than 70% of these originate from wildlife. And of course, many undiscovered viruses with pandemic potential are thought to exist in mammal and avian hosts. Arguably, the reason why zoonoses and pandemics are emerging more frequently reflect the ways humans interact with and exploit wildlife. We're seeing relentless development in pursuit of economic growth and associated destruction of habitat, increasing contact and conflict between people and wild animals. We're also seeing exponential growth in wildlife trade and trafficking, and the commodification of wild animals as exotic foods, traditional medicines, health tonics, pets, high-end gifts, status symbols, or investments. Wild animals are collected, farmed, transported, exported, and traded in huge numbers. The associated crowding, stress, and injury provide the perfect environment for pathogens to emerge, mutate, and spread. And the close proximity to people when they're traded and sold creates the opportunity for human transmission. So we're facing these three major crises, and there is an increasing recognition, I think, that they're all interlinked and that you can't find solutions to them in isolation from each other. Protecting nature and wildlife is key to climate change mitigation. Biodiversity absorbs greenhouse gases, provides a natural carbon store, and buffers against extreme weather and its consequences. Conserving ecosystems is more cost-effective than most human-made interventions. We're increasingly seeing nature-based solutions or ecosystem-based approaches to climate change. And there's some really interesting work by organizations such as Rebalance Earth on the carbon sequestration value of individual animals, such as great whales and elephants, and how to measure and realize this value. Limiting global warming is also key to protecting wildlife and nature. As the world warms up and environments change, many animals and plants find it increasingly difficult to thrive. And this is having profound effects on wildlife populations and the wider ecology through shifts in species abundance and distribution and changes to the predator-prey relationships. At the recent meeting of the UN Convention on Migratory Species in Uzbekistan back in February, the 130-odd member governments agreed on a strengthened resolution on climate change and endorsed a very worrying report on the impacts of climate change on migratory species. And protecting nature and wildlife is also key to preventing future pandemics. As I've said, most pandemics originate in wild animals, but it's only when we disrupt, exploit, and stress them that we create the conditions in which pathogens are likely to emerge, proliferate, mutate, and spill over to other animals and potentially to people. So in addition to considering animal welfare as an ethical and moral imperative, we need to see it as a vital component for successful wildlife conservation and ecosystem protection and restoration, by extension for climate change mitigation, and for preventing and mitigating the risk of future pandemics. So improving animal welfare is a very practical as well as a moral and ethical consideration. And for these reasons, it's vital that we work to integrate animal welfare into the international and national political agenda. However, as I've said, getting welfare onto the international political agenda is hard work, but we have seen some progress in recent times. In the 2019 United Nations Sustainable Development Report, it states the clear links between human health and well-being and animal welfare are increasingly being recognised, and strong government should safeguard the well-being of both wildlife and domesticated animals, with rules on animal welfare embedded in transnational trade. And the 2020 United Nations Environment Programme report on preventing the next pandemic stated strengthened sanitary regulations must go beyond public food markets and include the entire supply chain for domesticated and wild meat, including both farmed and captured wildlife. Adoption of animal welfare standards for the care, housing and transport of live animals across the entire supply chain is also needed to reduce risk of zoonotic disease transmission. Additional restrictions on which species can be legally sold should also be considered. And animal sentience is also increasingly recognised in legal and policy frameworks. For example, the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, the African Union Animal Welfare Strategy for Africa, and UK legislation through the Animal Welfare Sentience Act, which came into force in 2022. In February 2022, the United Nations Environment Assembly, which has 193 member states and dubs itself the world's highest level decision-making body on the environment, adopted a resolution on the animal welfare, environment and sustainable development nexus, which recognises that animal welfare, biodiversity and the environment are connected to human well-being, acknowledges that there is a strong body of science supporting animal sentience, and calls on United Nations Environment Assembly member states to protect animals and their habitats and meet their animal welfare requirements in the context of halting biodiversity loss, restoring ecosystems, mitigating climate change, preventing pollution, reducing the risk of new emerging infectious zoonotic disease, moving to sustainable and agroecological food systems, and achieving sustainable development. And in December of that year, 2022, the UN's Convention on Biological Diversity adopted the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which sets the international framework for biodiversity legislation and policy for the decades to come. Now, while there's no explicit reference to animal welfare in the framework, welfare is included in the operational objectives of the Convention's draft Global Action Plan for Biodiversity and Health, which aims, and I quote, to mainstream biodiversity and health linkages through sector-specific plans, including in the health sector, with a view to reducing the common drivers of biodiversity loss and health impacts, and thus promoting the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity alongside human well-being and animal welfare. The action plan is due to be adopted at the CBD's meeting in Colombia, in October this year. These and other important international mechanisms recognizing the importance of animal welfare give us a lot to build on. Now, for fear of repeating some of what Kate has said in the previous talk, there are some really important initiatives that can be used to promote the incorporation of animal welfare into wildlife conservation and protection efforts. First, the One Health initiative, which aims to bring together multiple sectors and disciplines working to attain optimal health for people, animals, and the environment at local, national, and global levels. This is already embraced by a number of international organizations. It's referenced in the Global Biodiversity Framework, and it should be forming the basis of the International Pandemics Agreement currently being negotiated by the World Health Organization. Back in December 2021, a definition of One Health was adopted by the World Health Organization, the World Organization for Animal Health, the Food and Agriculture Organization, and the UN Environment Programme, which for the first time includes a reference to the importance of well-being. Second is the One Welfare approach, which has been spearheaded by UK-based Spanish veterinarian Dr. Rebecca Garcia, who will be known to many of you, I'm sure. It's arguably broader than One Health in that it promotes the recognition that animal welfare, the well-being of biodiversity and the environment are all connected to human well-being. One Welfare offers a holistic approach and a tool to support disease risk mitigation, while also contributing to efforts aimed at addressing broader well-being issues in relation to the biodiversity and climate crises. And it also aims to promote key global objectives, such as supporting food security, achieving sustainability, reducing human suffering, and improving productivity within the farming sector. Although all through a better understanding of the value of high welfare standards, it's by demonstrating the links between improvements to animal welfare and these key objectives, all of which are closely linked to the Sustainable Development Goals, that we can progress towards embedding improved animal welfare into the international and national legislation and policy frameworks, and achieving the key goal of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is a world in which humanity lives in harmony with nature and in which wildlife and other living species are fully protected. So going forward, some key objectives for those working on international policy mechanisms should, I believe, include integrating animal health and welfare through the adoption of One Health and One Welfare approaches to augment efforts to reduce zoonotic disease risk, protect and conserve wildlife and biodiversity, and by extension tackle the climate crisis. Reframing the sustainable use narrative to incorporate human and animal health risks and animal welfare concerns. Valuing and mainstreaming wildlife and nature protection and animal welfare into all decision-making, and adopting robust implementation mechanisms and ensuring adequate resourcing for wildlife and nature protection. If we are to be successful in fully incorporating wildlife protection and animal welfare into international and national legislation and policy making, we need to not only promote it as a moral and ethical imperative, but also as a key mechanism for tackling the crises we currently face and as a vital component of successful wildlife conservation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jones. And that would be the concluding presentations of today's sessions. And now I would like to take a moment to thank Dr. Jones for its wonderful presentations full of informations and key takeaways for policy advocates across different levels. And now we will move to the Q&A sections of today's sessions. I would like to invite some of our AfA Policy Coalition's members to the floor to share some of their insights from their national work and learn a bit more from the speakers from today's sessions. First, I would like to introduce Diana, Government Relations Managers from Animal Friends Georgia.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, Diana.
Hi.
Yeah, welcome to the Q&A sections of today's sessions. You are welcome to take the floor and share a little bit about your work in Indonesia, as well as your questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the occasion. Well, I would like to thank you so much for the inspirational slides. That was great because we actually have this difficulty to work with this One Health concept with government because they kind of hard to understand the whole concept. So from hundreds of regulation in Indonesia related to animals and farming, there are only less than a handful that mentions animal welfare. And I think it's a strong indication that the government is not prioritizing animal welfare in their strategies. Well, yes, there is animal welfare department that takes care of animal welfare, and they do address the issue, but it's very low in priority. Well, the situation in Indonesia showing that there are lots of human-animal interaction that those in the more developed countries might not witness as often. And I think we all here agree that One Health concept is something that we can improve. And well, the situation in Indonesia showing that the practices have lots of things that might spread zoonosis or the beginnings of new pandemics. A lack of animal welfare is generally present in these human-animal interactions. For example, in the traditional market, we still can find chicken slaughtering with such a not really good hygiene standard, like blood everywhere, and the people who don't have like proper mask or proper gloves to do the slaughtering process. So from our organization standpoint, from AfA standpoint, we joined the campaign for this pandemic treaty, such as One Health campaign in the past few months, and it's kind of difficult to explain how high-level policy, like high thinking required concept should be something people who are on the grassroots could support or care about. So do you have any idea or tips of how we could make the concept more palatable for everyone? Even at an organizational level, everyone is so busy with their work, and it's so hard to add another issue on top of their everyday work. And it shows that there is a need to bring this issue to be more important. So how do we get people, make the government, include animal welfare and also these practices that include human-animal interaction in their agenda and strategies? Maybe you could have some tips and tricks for us about that issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diana. Antabush, Mark, and Kate, would you like to share your viewpoints?
I can start by saying a few words if that's appropriate. Yeah, thank you very much for your summary and your question. This is a really important issue. We work a lot at an international level. As I've said, trying to integrate animal welfare through international legislative and policy process. But the question always arises, how does this actually work at a practical level on the ground? What does it mean? How do you operationalize One Health and One Welfare principles through on the ground actions? And that's a very important and serious question. First of all, as you say, we have to ensure that the policymakers and the managers who are managing these issues at a local level understand the importance of integrating animal welfare into their actions. And as I've said, that can be difficult because many perhaps won't see, I'm sure we do, but many won't see the value of animal welfare compared to some of the other issues that they're trying to tackle and deal with, you know, the human well-being and so forth. So it's really important to continue to emphasize that we're not just promoting animal welfare for its own sake, we're also promoting animal welfare because it can help to tackle some of these other issues that policymakers are facing and improve human well-being. It can have benefits economically and so on. But, you know, those are arguments that we have to use. And I think the other thing that's really important to try and get across is that there needs to be integration and communication between the key focal points at a national or even a local level who are dealing with animal health, who are dealing with human health, and who are dealing with environmental issues. This is kind of happening at an international level, but that needs to filter down to those key focal points within countries and within local regions within those countries. So often there's a disconnect. These people are working in silos and not really communicating with each other. And there's some really, really good information on operationalizing One Health and integrating animal welfare that comes from the likes of the World Organization for Animal Health. So that's well worth looking into. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. You raised very interesting points. And that's part of the reasons why the AfA coalitions is here, and especially the AfA policy coalitions is here to facilitate these collaborations efforts between different national focal points and civil society organizations. I think that Altamush was looking to share his point of view as well.
Yeah, I was, of course. So firstly, that was a very good answer, and my answer would be slightly different. So in Pakistan and Indonesia, particularly, I think this might work, is understanding the local context first. So for example, I mean, Pakistan is Islamic, and we have that in our constitution as well. And I do know that there's a huge population in Indonesia that is also Islamic. So a part of like another one of my different projects that is also One Health based is essentially starting this training curriculum for faith-based leaders in Islam. So these are the most influential people in the Islamic realm. Like these are the people, the imams basically, who everybody listens to. And that is the case in Pakistan as well. So if you can train them, and the thing is, whatever they say is something people take at face value, at least in the Muslim world. And that will be true for Indonesia as well. You could bring a lot of change very, really fast. And that would involve teaching them not just about animal rights, but also about women rights as well, social justice, and so on and so forth. I felt there was another question within your question. So where you mentioned grassroots. So the thing is, my organization particularly does work on the grassroots level, but that's the rural side of Pakistan. So I do not know how much of the rural or urban divide is in Indonesia, because that really matters, because the human animal conditions or interactions would be very, very different. As in the case in Pakistan, we mostly have farm animals in rural Pakistan, while in urban Pakistan, we have cats and dogs, which are the most important issue. So while on the urban center, my policy approach essentially towards solving the dog culling problem, which is so severe in the country, is actually focusing on rabies, but also on women protection because of domestic violence angle, and also talking about the children because the government, for example, in Pakistan has a policy of just culling dogs, which it makes no sense. So while at the same time, you would need somewhere in the middle, some kind of an advocacy approach like a lawyer who could help you. So in our case, we are filing suits against the government as well. But at the same time, we are giving them an opportunity to understand from a One Health framework how they can solve the problem of rabies. But in the rural sector, which will be completely different, our approach is, as I have mentioned in my presentation, to work with the community and give them something first and make them trust you. I think the trust part is the most important thing that we almost forget, and people just don't want to because they have been used for so many times. So I think that's really, really important. And if possible, I would love to discuss this question with you further as well, because we have similar demographics and geography in Indonesia and Pakistan. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Atamush. That was super helpful. And I will follow up the discussions via email later to not just Animals Friend Georgia, but all of the interested participants for today and also the AfA policy members. Thank you. I think that Dr. Kate Layton has questions for you, Atamush. Please feel free to discuss more with Atamush if you want, Dr. Kate Layton.
Thank you. I was just going to make a comment about the other question, which I agree is a great question. Just to say again about the benefits of the nature NGOs joining with the animal NGOs in this work. And we've seen that's a very powerful way to combine voices when dealing with the government, and that again is where One Health and One Welfare, bringing all of the NGOs together to present the same message to governments. I've seen that work. So yes, all the best for your work, and definitely agree with the other speakers, and there is a lot of support available. So thanks, Nyopan. So Altamash, I've got a question in the chat box and or in the Q&A, and I was just wondering if you had any comments on fighting for the inherent rights of nature. So, for example, recognising a forest or river or whales as a person, so granting them specific rights and because of their inherent value, rather than just because they're good, it's good for humans or we get some economic benefit. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Can I comment right now, or should I do this later?
Please feel free to. This is a discussions after all.
So I will do a short comment, and we can take this forward because I love the rights of nature approach, and I've been using that in a lot of my projects outside the US and inside. So this is something you might not know. I mean, because it's from an Islamic perspective, and the reason why I became an expert on animal rights and environmental rights in Islam was because this is what people want to hear in Pakistan. This is what they understand. This is what they get. And the rights of nature is actually an inherent concept in Islam. And because our religion is a state religion, it's in the constitution. Anything that violates the state religion kind of violates the constitution as well. So we are working on that argument. But on the non-government side, what we're doing is we're applying a natural heritage approach. So while people would not understand rights of nature, but they would definitely understand that there's a culture and an identity that's of them, which they're losing on a daily basis in Pakistan. So what we're doing is we are helping old forests, making sure that they're not cut down, and we're placing a plaque on it as well to give it its own historical identity. And that's also true for the animals as well. So that's what we're doing, but it's in Pakistan, it's really new, but I can chat with you, but we're mostly using the Islamic angle because that's what people get here, but open to discussion. So I hope that was helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was super helpful, Antamush. And next up, we have Dr. Chatterjee from Samayu, another member of the AfA Policy Coalitions. He'll be sharing a little bit about his insights from India. Dr. Chatterjee, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So hello, everyone, and greetings of World Environment Day. I'm Dr. Devjyoti Chatterjee, working in Samayu, an intersectional NGO based in New Delhi, India. And thank you so much, Ms. Nong, for giving us this opportunity to share our views here. Taking an example of India's scenario, our country is bestowed with a huge animal resources and biodiversity, diverse culture and ethnicity, and harmonious living of world's largest human population, along with diverse ecoclimatic zones ranging from a temperate to tropical regions. So, as we are a firm believer of the philosophy that the world is one family, and we share this planet with our environment with our fellow living beings who deserve equality and equity. The recent pandemic of COVID-19 has also taught us the world this lesson that living in silos will not lead to any resolution or any solution to a problem. Instead, building intersectionality and a cohesive movement is a way forward. So as far as our country's advancement is concerned, India is advancing in this way by embracing the One Health approach. Though this concept was developed in India decades ago, but post-COVID, our national approach has been more focused to address the collective concerns that include human, animal, and environmental welfare aspects. So our country is now finalizing the National Action Plan for One Health, and we already have a National Institute of One Health, a premier interdisciplinary institution, which has been already established, and state-specific One Health cells and centers are also being established as per our national framework. So when it is from our organization level, we at SMACC, how are we involved in this endeavor that actually we are actively embracing this One Health, One Welfare framework for bringing on-ground impact in the lives of animals, human, and environment through intersectional approaches in our key domains, that is poultry and inland aquaculture sectors of India. So we have been able to achieve strategic collaboration with different relevant government departments. So for example, the animal husbandry departments and fishery departments of various states and central pollution control boards, then various premier universities run by government and the research institutes and academia. We have established a strong network with the end users, that's the farmers and consumers in these two sectors that already I've mentioned, that is poultry and inland aquaculture. So with the help of a structured project, we have been able to reach out to almost 300 plus farmers collectively from both sectors in 2 states in India. We have organized 2 designated One Health training programs, one from for each sector in poultry and inland aquaculture, wherein the animal welfare, human well-being perspectives, and the environmental safety were all incorporated under this One Health framework to build capacity and awareness. Also, we have organized a series of policy discussions involving the grassroots level stakeholders to identify the concerns and the way forwards for effective policy progression. Our movement building against banning non-clinical use of antibiotics in the animal agriculture sector has witnessed a significant progress, where we have mobilized the state governments to prepare a strong policy framework in this regard to prevent AMR and safeguarding the animal-human environment health nexus. Our approach towards environmental welfare clubbed with fish welfare in the aquaculture sector has initiated an intersectional involvement in the central province of India, where we are able to establish an interlink of welfare aspects of both the components. Collectively, our efforts on ground are aiming at improving the living condition and impacting the life of around 125 millions of poultry birds, around 500 millions of inland farm fishes, human associated with these 2 sectors, and the environment at large in these 2 states where we are currently functional. So this is how we are establishing an inclusive and intersectional approach on ground to safeguard the welfare of animal, human, and environment, and to establish a sustainable symphony. So here, I'm curious to know about the financial institutionalization of One Health concept for a better implementation perspective with the grassroots level end users. When we interacted with the grassroots level people, often we found that a strong financial policy is required for best implementation and to get the best outcome. So what could be the way forward? If we take a regional, you can say regional scenario, like our Indian subcontinent or a greater Southeast Asia, South Asia. So what could be the way forward? This is a prime thing what I wanted to discuss here. If you can please take this forward from here. Thank you.
Dr. Chatterjee, do you have any specific questions you would like to ask either of our speakers for today, based on the insights from India that you just shared with us?
Yeah, actually, the question is that once we are in line of implementing the One Health, One Welfare concept with the ground users, say for example, the farmers. So introduction of any new concept, any new technology, any new, you can say, a new practice always claims some financial support for best implementation and best outcome. So how can we institutionalize this financial matter? Means how to go ahead with the policy progression when we want to institutionalize the financial aspect of One Health implementation in these sectors, especially the animal agriculture. So if anyone of the speakers can please respond to this.
I think I'll have to be very brief because unfortunately I have to leave the meeting in a couple of minutes for a meeting with the UK government that I couldn't move. So I do apologise for that. It's a really good question. You know, how do we mobilise the financing that's required? It's always a good question around policy issues, particularly when you're dealing with, we're promoting policy changes or policy issues which many in governments don't view as priorities. And there are many other priorities that governments are being lobbied to spend money on all the time. So it's, you know, it's a question of how do we encourage governments to prioritize improvements in animal welfare. As I go back to my presentation, I think one way of doing that is trying to link improvements in animal welfare to some of the other priorities that governments are perhaps more focused on, particularly around human well-being and economic development and so forth. There are obviously international sources of funding which governments can tap into. It's always worth reminding governments that they are committed through their membership of international agreements and so forth to implement some of the measures that we're pushing for. So there's a commitment there. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to come up with the necessary funding. And I think the other thing is to try and emphasize some of the financial and economic benefits that can be gained. I mentioned very briefly an organization called Rebalance Earth, which is looking at the economic value that can be obtained through carbon credit systems by protecting wildlife and individual wild animals that have recognized value in terms of carbon sequestration. So there are some quite clever ways of actually generating finance through improvements to the way that animals are treated and recognizing the importance of their welfare. But it's a challenge, you know, it is a challenge and one that we have to keep working on. I hope that's helpful in some way.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Said Saab, any sorry.
Yes, please continue.
Said Saab, any input from your end? What's the scenario in Pakistan? If you can kindly share.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have an example that I wanted to share. So I'm working on a different problem, but I'll give you the answer, to explain it. So working on the issue of dog culling, which I know is not agricultural, the main argument that my government actually really wants to hear is the financial cost that comes along the way that we do things as normal. And that cost actually is around $68,000, which translates to 188 million rupees per year for the Pakistani government. And what the problem is, what the government fails to understand in that context is that they are only counting the amount of money that's being required for them to kill the dogs every couple months. What they're not quantifying is the impact that it has on the medical industry as a whole on solving the problem of the medication when it comes to rabies eradication,
And that would also be true with animal agriculture if there are zoonotic diseases happening, because what the government normally does is it does not quantify the further additional funding that they need from the medical perspective when it comes to solving that issue. From an agriculture perspective, the first barrier that I'm personally facing is of trust. So I cannot ask the farmers on day one to do this. They will never agree. So and because of the economic issues and so many barriers, the way farming kind of works in Pakistan is from on a loan-based system. So these farmers, which I'm assuming is true for India as well, the way the system is designed, these farmers are not given their actual earnings. It's basically being taken away from them, and they have to take loans every couple of months. And this is a reality to basically just feed their families and buy the seeds. So the first thing that we are doing, and this is through a research project I'm helping a friend with, is just buying them seeds and making sure that the loan problem goes away, that they don't owe any debt to other people, so they can support their families. The next step, of course, is to provide them pesticides, which I don't want to do, but they are not right now ready to change the way they do things as of the way they happen in Pakistan. So this is like a pilot project where we are going to help them increase their own economy. This is all plant-based, so crops, so mostly rice, which is kind of like a cash crop in Pakistan, and the season is coming in as well. So we're trying to build that trust-based relationship, and after 6 months, what we're hoping to do is change the idea, the way people do farming, and that is basically introducing technology. And this is going to take a lot of time, but this is the only way we have thought would be respectful of the farmers themselves, the animals, and the system. But of course, this is on the grassroots right side. I don't have an answer on the government side, but the government normally listens to how much it's gonna cost them, which is why I gave you the example of dog culling. So that's the argument they want to hear there. So it depends on the issue. So I hope that was helpful. But I'm happy to take this forward because India and Pakistan again have the same geographics, and I would be learning from you, which will help me in my work as well, if that's okay.
Thank you so much, Atabush. Obviously, I can connect you and Dr. Chatterjee and other interested members from APC as well. Moving on, I have other questions for Dr. Litton from the audience. The first question is, how can we get more information about One Health and One Welfare?
Sure, thank you. So I've answered some of the questions in the chat as well, but for further information on One Health and One Welfare, and also for information on the World Organization for Animal Health vision, so on One Health, One Welfare, it's really good to look at the One Welfare website and the One Welfare program, and there's a chapter in the One Health book that's on One Health, One Welfare. Also, I've recommended Wellbeing International, and then for more thinking and information, if you don't already have it, on the UNEA work that Mark was talking about, the World Federation for Animals is very closely involved, which I know many of you will probably already be involved with. And otherwise, people are welcome to get in touch with me. I'm really easy to find on the internet because there's no one else with my name, I don't think, anywhere. So also, Nyopan, if I may, just on the question about financing. So some time ago, the World Bank or IFC made a note, put together a good practice note for animal welfare. And the purpose of that was to really examine the economic benefits of improving animal welfare. So the note is a bit old, but if you look up good practice note for IFC, good practice note for animal welfare, and I can send the link to Nyopan for distribution, but you'll find that information there. And then if you, it gives a good policy sort of framework to thinking about economic benefits of improving animal welfare. And then with the new work, including what Mark mentioned on sustainable finance, we should be able to start to draw on that thinking and sources of funding for improvements in animal welfare, probably more at a government level rather than grassroots. But anyway, you might find those interesting to read. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate, for mentioning this document, and I'll make sure to send it to interested participants afterwards. When it comes to financing, I'm open for more discussions. I'm also working with other coalitions specifically on financings, and we would like to also organize a subgroup under AfA policy coalitions to tackle financing and divestment issues as well. There will be an upcoming podcast on this topic released in late June as well for anyone who is interested. And then when it comes to this topic, aside from the IFC, people could be interested in learning more about on this topic based on the reports from the World Bank's spring meetings, and also explore the options of working with development banks as well in Asia for considerations of fundings. And also recently they have an environmental and social framework, which we have sent an appeal letter for to provide our inputs on animal welfare criteria on the investment activities as well. So these are some of the financing activities that we could explore together off the top of my head. A lot of questions for Dr. Kate from the audience as well. Okay. Thank you for sharing the rabbit impact case from New Zealand on the reforestation project. Could you share if there has been an impact on research findings to how they handle the rabbits since the research was published? Seeing animals as pests and eradicating them in the cheapest way seems to be a problem for many species across the region.
I can't see the question, but if the question is about the impact of animals used in research on the paper, so a lot of the some of the research, I'm not sure about that paper. I'll have to have a look if I understand the question, but some of that research is on animals that are in the wild, so they're not tested in the laboratory for that work. And then there's a lot of information in that publication that talks about how that research needs to be done to ensure that animal welfare is protected as part of the research, as well as animal welfare being one of the outcomes that is sought from the research. So I can send the link around to that document anyway, and hopefully that will explain it a bit better.
Thank you, Kate. And I have another questions for you on the topic of natural-based solutions. So what specific policies or guidelines can be implemented to balance the ecological benefits of nature-based solutions with the ethical considerations of animal welfare? And how can stakeholders be engaged in this process?
So I don't think people are doing that well yet. So that's why what I see, and I've in researching for this talk, but also over the last 5 years or so, or probably 10 actually, because we were involved in the compassionate conservation work many years ago when it was first being started, and it's very hard to find actual programs, so on the ground programs where lots of interests are being taken into account. And so that's why we developed that consensus document that was put together, and then Mark also referred to it. And so what that means is or that's used at a government level rather than at a grassroots level. And what it means is that at a government level, the idea is that the laws are introduced that then require all of the interests to be taken into account. So that's the only way that I've seen that working, is when the government comes along and makes the requirements. It's not common for it to be something that is done voluntarily. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your answers. Do you want to add anything else? Okay. If no, it's
No.
okay. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for your very insightful questions and answers, and to our speakers for their thoughtful responses. As we conclude our sessions, I would like to introduce some important upcoming events and opportunities. The floor is yours, Ursula, for the wrapping up of today's event.
Thank you so much, Ma'an. I am sharing my screen and I hope everyone can see. Again, thank you, Ma'an. That was actually a very insightful session. And dear guests, if you agree with me or disagree with me with my statement just now, or would like to leave feedback about this session or AfA Connect in general, we would love to hear from you. So please head over to this form. You can QR code scan it, or you can click on the link provided in the chat and fill it after this. So save that link. Copy that link somewhere. Save it. The next announcement I would really love to share is that, so for today, we have AfA Connect second event, and we will be hosting two more AfA Connect this year, one happening in August and the other one in November. So if you want to learn more about the program of our future AfA Connect event series, head over to asiaforanimals.com/connect. This year, we also have some exciting in-person events, such as the Asia Farm Animal Day, scheduled for October 9 to 11 in Hanoi, Vietnam. Registration is now open, and if you'd like to learn more about the conference, please go to asiafarmanimalday.com. We also have Farm Animal Coalition regional events happening in the Philippines in June 28 and India, which is to be confirmed. The AfA team and I are eagerly looking forward to seeing many of you at these events. So if you join us at previous AfA conferences, AfAD 2023 and FAC's regional events, you understand the immense value of these in-person gatherings and their significance to the movements. It's pertinent for all of us to sustain our collaborative efforts and work together towards AfA's main goal, which is to unite our voices for the animals. And speaking of voices, we have also launched the AfA podcast this year. If you haven't already, I would really recommend checking it out. The episodes we have released so far are brilliant, with the guest speakers from all around the world sharing their experiences and updates. So you can check them out at asiafarmanimalls.com/podcast. Last but not least, if you'd like to receive a certificate of participation for this event, please scan the QR code provided here or access the link shared in the chat. And this concludes our event today. Thank you everyone for participating in the event. We will be back tomorrow for our second day of the AfA Connect online event. That's how we say it in Malaysia. Selamat tinggal. Bye everyone.